Welcome to the Press Row. I'm Barry Trammell, along with sports editor Mike Sherman, standing in for Jenny Carlson. We're at the Opubco Studios in Oklahoma. We are sponsored by Papa John's. Better ingredients, better pizza, Papa John's. Let's get to the emails, inbox, and the topic of the week, of course, is Joe Mixon. So we're going to go heavy on the Joe Mixon questions. In the Joe Mixon case, Kelly asks, no matter what she did first or the fact that she was probably intoxicated, he hit her and did it viciously. And the only reason that he hasn't been charged is that he is an OU football player and that the DA and the Norman police are trying to cover all of their bases. How do you respond?
I hope the Norman PD and the district attorney are always trying to cover all their bases. We're depending on it. Civilization depends on it. We need, when they decide to press charges against somebody, I hope they've done all their work, dotted the I's, crossed the T's, and really and truly, in this case, imagine the complexities. It's late at night, Barry. You're fond of saying nothing good happens after midnight. What kind of testimony are you getting from people who've been up to 2:40? What kind of testimony are you getting from people who are out at night, maybe imbibing in what we do not know? I think the district attorney and the cops got a tough job in this case, and that's why I think it's taken time.
Well, I disagree that the DA is in the hip pocket of OU administrators and coaches. Here's what I say about the district attorney. People say, he's got to, for political reasons, he's got to support OU. I think he's feeling pressure the other way. If Greg Mashburn is trying to get on the right side of the public, he would do a quick arrest, and because to me, the way the wind's blowing is people are outraged at the injuries of this woman, and that there's been some rushes to judgment concerning Joe Mixon. So I think it's the opposite. I think you're right. I think they're trying to cover all bases. It's a very complicated case in that. I think seems likely to me that Joe Mixon is guilty of breaking cultural laws more than perhaps legal laws. And I think that's a tough situation for DA. Dan asks this. He says, I am concerned that there is an almost orchestrated effort to frame public opinion against Joe Mixon. In almost all stories, the female in the altercation is referred to as the victim. That is prejudicial, in my opinion, and can shape public opinion. I think he's got an interesting point, and I think it's changed in the course of the last 6 or 7 days. Early on, I think that's the way most reports sort of labeled it. I'm not sure that that's continued as we've learned more about the case, but I do think this, the nature of this woman's injuries has sort of propelled this into thinking of her as a victim.
Well, it's interesting you use that word. That's what I seized upon in what he said too. The alleged victim is the way we talked about it. There's always that word alleged, and I think people might just skip right over it when they're reading things. This is an allegation. There are no charges, and it's an allegation that she said he punched her. So she is alleging that she is a victim. I do think it's interesting as time has gone on, we found out more about her background, the fact that there's a warrant out for her arrest, that she has faced had drug charges against her. So the public view of her as a victim has changed. The early reporting, and I don't really know what to call her, I'm a little bit searching for a word here, but the alleged is an important word for us, Barry. I'm not sure that the public doesn't read right over it sometimes.
Well, I mean, to me, it's a fascinating case. I've actually learned a lot about the legality of a lot of things there. I did not know concerning self-defense and those kinds of things. So I think just the fact that she's a woman, got her face beat in, or injured to some degree, I think it's a natural assumption to think of her as a victim. And I don't even know if we've even called her a victim in several days. I mean, I don't know if we're not really referring to that anymore. Maybe she was, maybe she's not. Who knows? But it's definitely taken on a sort of a new landscape and a new way to look at this entire situation. Let's go to Brett. He said, I'm writing you because there's an obvious dichotomy between legal justification and cultural justification at play here. Here's the law. If he acted in self-defense, he is not culpable in any way, shape, or form. He has that right. We all do. If he acted in self-defense, he did nothing wrong.
Well, that's what his attorney is real. That's the case. That's the impression his attorney is trying to create. That's what they're putting out. We don't know. We haven't heard from her attorney yet. We really haven't heard from a prosecutor if there is going to be one. The cops have just, all we've seen from the cops is just the initial incident report. We don't know what the other side is alleging, but clearly, Barry, that's what his attorney stated, that he was defending himself. And if that's true and that's proven, he may not even face any charges.
This is an interesting case for this reason. The law makes no difference between male and female. There's no separate law for hitting a woman as opposed to hitting a man. There's no gender view in the law. But there is among society. In culture, we do. If this had been a male that had the exact same circumstances, only it was a male. Joe Mixon is alleged to have hit a 20-year-old OU male student in the face, and I don't think the outrage would be there. I don't think the legalities would be much. If we find out he's acting in self-defense, we'd have said, hey, you picked on the wrong guy. It was a woman. The law says doesn't matter. Law doesn't care, but society cares, and that's a big difference. Mike says, I am one of those who cannot think of any excuse for hitting a woman. I'm about as big an OU fan as anyone, but I find it hard to believe that Mixon had no choice but to strike back. Mixon may not be charged, and if charged, it may be minor, but I won't be rooting for him. What do you say?
Well, I say this is what Joe Mixon's long-term problem is. Short-term, he's got to figure out a way, and his attorney's got to figure out a way of avoiding these charges, avoiding possible charges. But long-term, Barry, the previous question was about the cultural problem. Will he always be known as the guy who hit a woman, even if he's not charged? Even if this incident, could this always hang over him? And as this guy says, this is a no-no in our culture. You don't get into an altercation with a woman. You don't strike a woman, even if it's self-defense. That's the opinion. That's the way people were raised. My father-in-law was just talking about this last night. So I think this is going to be a problem hanging over Joe Mixon wherever he goes, and especially if he ends up playing at the University of Oklahoma as planned.
Well, I think that's why I say it might be better for Joe Mixon if he goes. Here's why. In many ways, Joe Mixon's already started serving his sentence. Regardless of what happens with the judicial system, even if he doesn't get charged, he is serving a sentence which is, as you said, labeled as the guy who hit the girl. And that's what he's got to walk around in. If he goes to Oregon, if he goes to Ohio State, if he goes to North Carolina, that kind of aura does not hang over him as much as if he stays here. That's why I think in the long run, he might be better off going elsewhere. It would be a chance to get himself a better, fresh start. It's going to be tough to make it at Oklahoma, I think, for this very reason. Lots of people won't be rooting for him. Stay tuned for further OU football coverage here on News OK and every day in the Oklahoman. Remember, Press Row is sponsored by Papa John's. Better ingredients, better pizza. Papa John's.